Welcome to SBB University Caregiving Resources, brought to you by Seniors Blue Book, Resources for Aging Well. I'm Kathleen Warshawsky, and our guest today is Miss Emilia Bourland with AIPC Therapy. Welcome, Emilia.
Hi, everyone again, and hi, Kathleen. Thank you so much again for having me here for part 2 of Transfer Smarter, Not Harder. Today, we're going to be talking about using body position and body mechanics for success during transfers. We're going to talk about how to work smarter and not harder by following really simple guidelines for movement and for positioning. In case you are just joining us for part 2 of this series, I will reintroduce myself. My name is Emilia Bourland. I'm an occupational therapist, and I also have my executive certificate in home modification from USC's Leonard Davis School of Technology. I'm a former educator at Texas Women's University, where I taught the Master of Occupational Therapy program, teaching hands-on clinical skills, advanced clinical reasoning, and of course, basic and advanced transfer training. I'm a published author in topics of stroke rehabilitation, as well as a health and wellness contributor to a local magazine here in Dallas. I'm an expert in transfer safety and transfer independence, and I'm the owner of AIPC Therapy, which is a mobile occupational therapy practice serving DFW. We are absolutely committed to ensuring that our clients are able to achieve their goals, improve their outcomes, perform the activities that they want, need, and love to do, and create safe and functional environments. So just in case you are just joining us, this training is absolutely best for people, families and caregivers, or family caregivers or professionals who are committed to safety, who want to foster independence in the people that they are helping, who want to practice self-care to protect themselves, and family caregivers and professionals who are interested in new solutions to the transfer problems that they are having. If you are here, it's likely that you are a caregiver or a professional caregiver who is overwhelmed, overworked, worried about their safety, already in pain, confused or unsure about the proper way to be doing transfers to assist the people that you're working with. Maybe you've been let down by prior training or education, or you don't really have any prior training or education, and you just want to do what is best for you and the person that you are assisting. Quick little health and medical advice disclaimer. This is a general training about transfer training and safety. It's not a substitute for individualized care for a particular medical condition or concern. So if you or the person that you're caring for has a medical condition that you feel like needs to be addressed individually, then make sure to reach out to a licensed and highly skilled medical professional such as myself or another highly skilled healthcare professional to get that problem addressed. So why do body mechanics and positioning matter in transfers? Well, first of all, caregivers and healthcare providers are at the highest risk of workplace injury, the highest risk. So it's really imperative that we understand how to move our bodies correctly and how to position ourselves literally for success during our transfers, because the stakes are very high. If a caregiver is injured, that could lead to loss of employment. It could lead to, in the case of a family caregiver, perhaps the person being cared for needing to be placed in a different level of care. It can lead, of course, to the loss of other valued activities due to the injury. Injury of the actual person being cared for, the caree or the transferee, can lead to increased dependence, loss of quality of life, and serious injury leading to shorter lifespan or significantly decreased quality of life. So the stakes are really high, and by using some basic principles, we can really help to protect ourselves and the people that we're caring for. The goals for Smarter Transfer Training Part 2 today are, by the end of the session, I want you to understand at least 3 basic principles of good body mechanics that you had either forgotten or were previously unaware of. I want you to name at least 3 principles of proper positioning, and I want you to have greater confidence in your ability to use good body mechanics and positioning to achieve success during your transfers. So we have this list of why transfers go wrong. We went over it in part 1. Today, we have just one thing highlighted, and that is because we are going to focus 100% of this presentation today on poor physical positioning and body mechanics as a reason that transfers go wrong. And we want to solve those problems here. So we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about the basics of good body mechanics. The number one principle of good body mechanics is to maintain the natural curves of your spine. That's just a very fancy way of saying use good posture. Your spine has 3 natural curves in it: the cervical, the thoracic, and the lumbar. Cervical is the part of your spine that is your neck. Thoracic are the part of your spine that connects to your ribs. And the lumbar is everything below that until you hit the sacrum. And all 3 of those have natural curves in them. When you sit up and have really good posture or stand up with good posture, then you are maintaining those natural curves. The second principle of good body mechanics is loading weight skeletally, not muscularly. So what that means is you want to try to keep the weight or the load that you're carrying in a straight line down through your body and down into the floor. And that way it's actually your skeleton and the floor that is carrying the weight, not your muscles. So we want to keep as much of the weight as possible going down in the skeleton and the floor rather than having to use so much of our muscles. And you do that by keeping the weight close to your body and by maintaining good posture, going back to principle number 1. So principles 3, 4, and 5, you want to make sure that you are using your largest muscles to lift. So you lift with your legs, not with your back. I'm sure you've heard that before. You want to use your biceps rather than your grip strength in your hands to pull someone towards you and keep their weight close to your body. And you can achieve that most easily with the proper use of a gait belt, which we're going to go over in part 3. The number 4 principle is no twisting. This is very important. You want to pivot with your feet during a transfer, not turn or twist at your back. That is a very quick way to have a pretty significant back injury. Principle number 5, lift from the center of the weight. So what that means when you're moving a person is you want to try to move them from their hips or their waist rather than from underneath their arms or by holding their arms or their hands. You can think of it like if you were moving and you had a box that you were going to lift. You wouldn't open the lid of the box and pick the box up by the lid. You would instead scoop the box up from the bottom to carry it. So it's basically the same principle. We want to lift the weight from the middle of the weight, from underneath, rather than from the top. So some basics of positioning for the transferee, the person being transferred. And don't worry, there's going to be some pictures after this so you can actually see it too. You want to have their hips scooted forward on the starting surface. So if they're starting seated, you want their hips to be scooted forward so that they are in a position where they're ready to stand. You can also have their hips kind of angled toward the direction where they're going to go. And that just reduces the amount of distance that you are going to have to travel with them during the transfer. Their feet, assuming that the person you're transferring can weight bear through their feet, they're allowed to bear weight. The feet should both be on the floor. You want the feet to be positioned slightly behind the knees, so a little bit more than a 90-degree bend in the knees. Picture kind of you have a line drawn straight down from sort of mid thigh bone all the way to the floor. That's about where the feet should land. And absolutely, you want to make sure that they are wearing some sort of foot protection, foot covering that has like a non-skid surface on it, or a thin-soled shoe with grip, because feet are more slippery and floors tend to be a little bit more slippery than we imagine. We don't want anyone to go down because they slip. Their hands should be pushing from the starting surface during the start of the at the start of the transfer. They need to be pushing up from the surface where they're starting. During the transfer, you will ideally want their hands to be reaching for an ending surface, for an armrest or a rail where they are going. And at the end of the transfer, you want them to be reaching for or holding on to the armrest, rail, or the final transfer surface in order to have them help assist with a nice controlled lower to finish the transfer. transfer. Some special considerations for that where it might be slightly different. If someone is using a walker, which we're going to go over, if someone is using grab bars, or if someone for some reason needs to place their hands on the body of the transferer. And I'll just say about that, if someone does need to put their hands on you for whatever reason during a transfer for stability or safety, you always want to make sure that you are having them grab your arms, maybe your upper arms, but never have them hold you around the neck. Do not ever let someone wrap their arms around your neck during a transfer. It's a pretty quick way for you to get badly injured. So always, if they need to hold on to you, have them hold onto your arms. Okay, so here are some pictures. I'm kind of demonstrating here the position of the person being transferred. As you can see there, my hands are in a couple of different positions. My hips are scooted forward like I'm getting ready to stand. In one of the pictures, my hands are actually on the bed, ready to push up from the bed. And in another, I have one hand on the bed and the other on the bedside commode. I have the ability to do that because that piece of equipment is so close that it is touching the bed, so it's right there for me. I want you to notice that my hand on that bedside commode, though, is open. You always want to instruct the person that, that you're transferring, if they're going to use something like a bedside commode or the wheelchair armrest to push up from at the start of the transfer, that they do it with a flat open hand rather than grabbing onto the armrest. And that's because sometimes once people come up to stand, they have a really tough time turning that armrest loose. And then it becomes really difficult to complete the rest of the transfer. So just giving that little instruction to have an open flat hand can help to solve that problem right off the bat. You'll notice that my feet are, again, slightly underneath where my knees would be if you drew a straight line down. So they're bent a little bit more than 90 degrees. And also you can see that they're angled in the direction that I actually want to be traveling. So I want to go the shortest possible distance to get to that bedside commode. And so I'm already setting myself up in the position, or I'm already setting the person I'm going to transfer up in the position where they're automatically turning in the shortest possible direction. So let's talk about some basics of positioning for the transferer, for you, for the caregiver. You want to have your back nice and straight with good posture. You want to keep your back low and basically level with the upper body of the person you are transferring. And I'll show you a picture of that in a second. Your feet should be on the floor at about 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock. If 12 o'clock is facing the person you are transferring. And you want your feet spaced out to give you a nice wide base of support so you don't lose your balance easily. You should have comfortable, well-secured shoes, no heels. Heels are not great for transferring. And your hands should be firmly around their hips or their waist with the use of a transfer belt or a gait belt. Your fingers should be kind of tucked under that belt to allow your biceps to lift and pull rather than having to grab and pull on with your hands. If you are unable to use a gait belt for some reason, you still want to place your hands around their hips or around their waist in a way where you're still providing support from the middle of their body. So here's some pictures of that. Again, you can kind of see with me as the transferer here in this scenario, you can see my back is nice and flat, nice and straight. If there were a person sitting there in front of me, my upper body would be basically level, if not maybe even a little bit lower with their upper body. So I'm right there on their level. You can see how my hands would be right around their waist. Taking a look at my feet, you can see that they're nice and wide. I have a big base of support because I'm turning to the right. It's my left foot in front at that 12 o'clock and my right foot at that 3 o'clock position. But if that's too confusing a way for you to think about it, you can basically think you just want to make an L, a nice open L that is pointing towards the direction that you want to go. And then this is, I don't know why somehow this picture got flipped, but you can see sort of my final position there, back still flat and and still on that low level with the person that I transferred. So I have a little video here to kind of demonstrate what that pivot looks like. So this would be what we call a stand pivot transfer. And I'll show you kind of just how that looks here. Stand, pivot, and set the person down. So again, we're gonna stand, pivot, and set the person down, just like that. Pretty smooth. Oh, okay. All right. So to wrap up for today, the use of good body mechanics and positioning is absolutely key to ensuring the safety and success of all of your transfers. It's going to allow you to help the person that you're moving increase their participation, so you don't have to do as much. So it's decreasing your physical demands. It's going to decrease your risk of injury significantly. And if you're using good positioning, good body mechanics, everything becomes easier. Your confidence will be increased. And of course, you're going to prevent complications that can lead to serious injury, either in that instance or over time to yourself, continuing to do transfers over time. So if you're in need of some more advanced training, if you need more individualized training, custom solutions, or a staff training, then please feel free to reach out to me. You can either give me a call or you can send me an email. I'd be happy to provide you with a free consultation in order to discuss exactly what your needs are, what your goals are, and ultimately come up with the best possible training solution and individualized options for you and your needs. On the other hand, if you just want some more access to free tips, free tricks, all about transfer safety, then please feel free to sign up for my video newsletter. You can sign up at my website, www.aipctherapy.com/transfer training. And there you can sign up for the newsletter and get access to that information for free. And of course, I want to make sure that you join us for part 3 of this series, which is all about using your equipment correctly, the basics that you absolutely need to know in order to make sure you are transferring smarter, not harder, by understanding how your equipment works so you can be safer, so you can lift less, and you can protect yourself and the person that you are transferring. If you have any questions, comments, concerns in the meantime, please again feel free to reach out to me. You can call me, you can send me an email. I would be happy to respond to any questions or comments that you have and ultimately make sure that you have all the information that you need in order to be safe and to keep the person that you're caring for safe. If you have any other questions or concerns, you can reach out. I'd be happy to provide a free consultation for you so you can figure out what the best possible solution is for your situation, whether you are a professional caregiver, whether you employ caregivers and you need a staff training, or you are an individual family caregiver and you just need solutions that are going to fit for you and the person that you are caring for. Again, if you want more free tips, please feel free to sign up for the video newsletter. That's what it's there for. You can visit my website to sign up and start receiving it in your inbox. And of course, join us for part 3 of the series. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for having me. It was absolutely a pleasure to be here again, and I cannot wait to present the 3rd part of the series. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much, Emilia.